Welcome to Mind Love, episode 300. Today's episode is all about accessing wisdom beyond the logical mind and energetically transcending to new earth.
The formula for all creation, including creating your reality, creating your thoughts, creating the life that you want, all of that. Consciousness is what moves energy into form. So when you're raising your awareness, when you're raising your level of consciousness, when you're opening up to a grander perspective on life and what's possible, your awareness is allowing you to see more. So as you raise your level of consciousness or awareness, all of a sudden you begin to summon a lot more energy. You might feel good, you might feel happier, you might feel more joyful, you might feel actual physical energy moving into your body like you hadn't felt before. That is what moves our experiences and creates our reality in physical form. Consciousness moves energy into form.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
If you're new to Mind Love and you're really ready to upgrade your mindset, hit the subscribe button. With every episode, we'll explore new ways to cultivate self-love, mindfulness, and inner peace. And as always, your support means the world to me. So hit the subscribe button and let's keep spreading the love. If you're on a spiritual journey, I'm sure you've heard of elevating your consciousness or raising your vibes if you've ever gone to any yoga class ever. But what does raising your vibration really mean? And how do you know if you're doing it? The science of vibes might sound a little woo-woo, but there is actual research behind it, and it's being studied across multiple fields of science. Are you ready for a little science lesson? In biology, researchers have found that all living things emit electromagnetic waves, known as biophotons. Well, these biophotons are believed to help cells communicate. So basically, cells give off little bursts of energy, kind of like little waves, and these waves help the cells communicate with each other and stay healthy. Well, each of these energy bursts has a distinct frequency, so even our cells attract or repel each other based on their vibes. Sounds kind of like the law of attraction, right? Well, let's talk about another field of science, quantum physics, which is all about studying the tiniest parts that make up everything around us. These tiny parts are called atoms, and they're like the building blocks of everything in the world. Scientists found out that atoms can exist in many different states at the same time, and these states are determined by the amount of energy they have. This is called the wave-particle duality, and it affects how everything in the world behaves. So this suggests that maybe we experience things differently depending on the frequency we're holding, and therefore tuning into. Well, the last field we'll talk about is neuroscience, all about our brains and how they work. And since this is Mind Love, it's pretty fitting. Well, our brains actually send out different kinds of frequency waves. Some researchers have suggested that certain brain frequencies, like alpha and theta waves, might be associated with spiritual experiences, such as meditation or prayer. Studies have shown that people who regularly do these things tend to have more alpha and theta activity in their brains, which might be related to feelings of relaxation, focus, and transcendence. So what does this all suggest? That maybe the vibration we carry determines how we experience the world, from at the very least our state of perception to actually changing the material world as we witness it. Mind-blowing, right? There's a lot of talk in the spiritual community these days about the concept of the new earth, and there's a few different beliefs behind it. One is the idea that our world is pretty screwed up, and together we're going to burn down all of our old school establishments and start building something new. But another is around the frequency we're holding, that maybe as we each raise our vibrations, the collective consciousness will transcend us to a new awareness. So maybe this new earth is already here, and we just need to elevate enough to be able to experience it. And maybe this even changes the way we interpret different spiritual scriptures, like how the kingdom of God is within us. What we know for sure is that the more we learn, the more we realize reality is not as it seems. And whatever you believe about it, only good things can come from learning to manage your own energy. And raising your frequency, your perception, your awareness just might be the most important challenge you take on. So that's what we're learning about today. Our guest is Sara Landon. She's a globally celebrated transformational leader, spiritual teacher, best-selling author, and channel of The Council. She's even been called the leader of leaders for the next generation of teachers and guides who are contributing to raising the consciousness and vibration on the planet right now. So 3 key things we will learn are how to take responsibility for your consciousness level and the reality you experience, how to use your imagination to move past doubt and denial, and how to move your awareness from your head to your heart. Before we go deep today, I want to give you a little gift, and I want to give it to you every single day. It's called the Morning Mind Love. I know how life can be. You're all fired up after an inspiring episode, and then a new day or a new challenge comes at you, and it's just hard to keep up that energy. Well, the Morning Mind Love is kind of like an oracle from your higher self to help you start each day with a positive focus. Plus, when you sign up, you get 2 free gifts, a 30-minute binaural meditation and 30 days of journaling prompts to help you remember who you truly are. And it's all completely free. So join over 9,000 people and go to mindlove.com to sign up or text the word morning to 33777. And now let's welcome Sara Landon to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here and have this conversation with you today.
So when I was reading your book, I had such a similar story to the one you told about being just raised religious, which led to a lot of confliction. And for a while, I think for me, a disbelief in any greater power. And then that just led to a period of feeling kind of lost. And I knew whatever I was doing wasn't working. And so it's led me down the spiritual path I'm on now. But I'd love for you to tell your story.
Yeah, I can certainly relate, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners can as well. I grew up in a very loving Christian family. I really did. And for most of them, all they ever knew was the teachings of Christianity. They hadn't been exposed to other religions or philosophies or any of the spirituality that may be a bit more common nowadays. And so I grew up and going to Sunday school and singing songs about Jesus. And around the age of 7 years old, we ended up moving and we moved closer to my aunt, who at the time was on her spiritual path and was talking about reincarnation and past lives and all these things that I'd never heard of. But even as a young person could identify, really felt like truth to me, really was engaging to me. I wanted to know more about it. I could tell by the way that I felt there was this excitement and even this love and the energy of what she talked about. And so at one point in time, I ended up kind of sharing that with some of my more Christian family who just didn't understand it. And all that they ever knew was anything that was not of the Christian teachings was not the path to God, right? And like you, I got to a point where I just felt so confused and hurt by some of the things and the judgment that I just, in my teenage years, I didn't use the word God at all. I knew there was something more. I was reading every book I could find, even as a teenager, on spirituality and finding answers and who am I and why am I here and what's my purpose. And then I had a few, of course, divinely orchestrated experiences, most notably the transition of my brother who passed away in a car accident or crash in 2001. And I had never really had anyone very close to me die other than a dear friend, and especially this shocking and immediate. And so when I walked in to view his body, it was just kind of a foreign experience to me and very heavy, very emotional. It was myself and my immediate family. And then I went and sat down on this chair that was like a metal folding chair that you'd have in a high school gymnasium or something. And it was very obvious to me just how heavy the room was, how emotional, just the sadness. And I sat there for a while, and all of a sudden, what I can only describe as liquid love started in the top of my head and just flowed through my entire body. I was warm, I felt light, and I was completely and totally in peace. And I heard my brother say over my right shoulder, I'm still here. I'm just not in there. And the reference I could tell was to his body, which was on the left side of the room. And back in my head, I said to him, well, where are you? And he said, I'm just as here as I ever was. I just left the density of the body and I'm at a rate of vibration that your physical senses can't interpret. Well, those were not words. Vibration and frequency and those types of things were just not natural words that I was used to at that point. And then I said, well, what about heaven and hell? And he's like, it's not like that. There's only love. And after this conversation, it immediately receded. And there was no goodbye or I'll talk to you later, or there was just an answering of a few questions. And then I was right back in that room. But the love that I felt, the peace that I felt, I couldn't explain it. I couldn't deny it, but I didn't tell anyone at that time. And I tried to just kind of go back to my normal life afterwards, but I so wanted to talk to my brother more. I so wanted that feeling of love and peace and energy. And so for quite a long time, probably about a span of about 10 years, my brother would spontaneously come through. I would feel that energy. I would feel his love all around me. And I always heard him over my right shoulder. And I truly believe this was my first experience with communicating with the other side or non-physical or source at this greater extension of what we are. I didn't know at that time how to intentionally connect. It just happened spontaneously. Now, when I teach people how to connect into that, and I know anybody can connect in any time with their loved ones on the other side. We all have this ability. But ultimately, it was only love. There was only love. And I still had a lot of questions, but it reaffirmed my knowing that there was only love on the other side, that this thing that we call God was not this damning, judging God, that it was love. And so then fast forward, I started waking up in the middle of the night and I just had to write. And I would write and write and write. The penmanship, handwriting was a little bit different than mine, but I would just have to write. And I would write and write, and then it would just stop. And the next morning I would read it. And it was the answers to the big questions about life that I had that no one could really answer for me. Those questions about who are we? Why are we here? What is God? How do we create our lives? What is possible for us? All these different things. And these answers were coming through me. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. Now I know that many people refer to that as automatic writing. I teach people how to do automatic writing now. It's something that's available to all of us in every moment. But there was yet another step in my journey. And probably the final piece of that was I met a woman in a yoga class who just serendipitously, of course, was next to me like 3 days in a row. And we got to talking, and she said she was a QHHT practitioner, which, if you're familiar with the work of Dolores Cannon, is a quantum healing hypnosis technique. And she was a practitioner of that. And I was not familiar with it at all. And I said, well, what do you do? And she said, I help people get in touch with their higher selves. And I was like, I need a session with you. So we scheduled a session. And she walked me through this process of kind of getting into like a meditative state, very, very relaxed, but I was still aware. And she began to ask questions and asked if we could talk to Sarah's higher self. And as this progressed on over time, at one point, all of a sudden, this energy that was just the most powerful, loving energy just started coming through my body, and my voice changed, the cadence of my voice changed. I was still very conscious. I still knew who I was, where I was, what was going on. But all of a sudden, this information was there that just had to come out of me. And it started to refer to itself as we instead of me, like I or me, if you were talking, and went on to answer her questions for a long period of time, which was all recorded. And afterwards, they receded, and I was sort of just my consciousness alone at that point. And we're like, wow, that was amazing. She was a bit more familiar with what had occurred than I was. And yet I listened back to it. I had the information transcribed that came through me. And again, it was just the most incredible wisdom, like the answer to everything, your deepest questions, anything that you wanted to know, and it's coming through me. So I continued to meet with her and tune back in, get into that meditative state. And bring through what we now refer to as the Council, which is a collective of ascended master beings that are here to help us live our highest potential and remember who we are and why we are here and what's possible for us. And it's a very natural experience for me now. I just take a couple of deep breaths and they come through, and their messages are ultimately that we are pure love and how to live our highest potential and create our lives the way we want it to be. And that indeed, everything on the other side is just simply a transition into a higher state of consciousness. And I have, since been able to come full circle to understand the original teachings of Jesus, who was an incredible, great master, of course, are very much aligned with all the great teachings of the world. Love God, which is you, with your whole heart, mind, body, and soul. When he said, I am the way, he didn't mean he's the only way. He meant, the way is within you. Go within you, and the way will be presented to you. And many, many more things that we can talk about that I would now explain through consciousness and summoning energy and vibration and frequency, that we are so much more powerful than we know ourselves to be. And so, as you mentioned, we published a book last year called The Wisdom of the Council, which is channeled messages for living your purpose. We have a second book coming out in June of 2023, which is The Dream, the Journey, Eternity, and God, which is a collaboration with New York Times bestselling author Mike Dooley, who many of you know. He was in The Secret. He writes notes from the universe, and he actually asked, his deepest questions to the council. And so that book is the answers to the dream, the journey, eternity, and in God, and what their perspective is on all of that. So it's been a pretty incredible journey. I have to say that one of my biggest fears was that my family wouldn't understand, that my friends of a different faith wouldn't understand. And yet I have found exactly the opposite. I've just seen an awakening in every area of my life, with my friends, with my family, and not awakening that my truth is the way or anything, but awakening the fact that they can find that truth within them for themselves. And it's always available to them too. And just opening to far more that is possible for us here. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but that's essentially an overview of the journey.
Oh, I love long-winded answers, so it's fine. You know what's interesting about mindfulness? It's not just about being present in the moment. It's about being thoughtful about the future. We meditate, we exercise, we work on ourselves, all to create a better tomorrow, right? But there's one piece of the future planning puzzle that nobody likes to talk about. I get it. Life insurance feels heavy. But here's the thing. Just like meditation is an act of self-care, getting life insurance is an act of family care. It's about making sure your love continues to support your family, even when you're not there to do it yourself. That's why I want to tell you about Select Quote. They're one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience helping over 2 million customers. Their licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. And here's what's cool. They actually reward you for taking care of yourself. If you're in good health, they work with carriers that could get you same-day coverage for up to $5 million. No medical exam required. And it's way more affordable than you might think. You could even get coverage for up to $1 million for as little as $20 per month. We just did this all recently after putting it off for years, and I can't tell you the peace of mind just from getting it done. So get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/mindlove. Go to selectquote.com/mindlove today to get started. That's selectquote.com/mindlove. You know what's funny? We spend so much time feeding our minds, reading books, listening to podcasts, learning new things, but then we grab whatever's convenient to feed our bodies. And I get it. Life is busy, and sometimes a drive-through feels like the only option. But that's why I take Field of Greens. It's a greens powder made with whole organic fruits and vegetables. No extracts, no lab-made stuff, and just 1 scoop a day gives you simple, real nutrition. Field of Greens feeds your body with fruits and vegetables medically chosen to support your heart, vital organs, and immune system.
And let me tell you something. Since I started taking it, I've noticed these little changes that show me how nutrient depleted I must have been before. Like the ridges in my nails, gone. My sleep, so much better. And my stomach just feels happy. You know that dreaded afternoon crash that has you reaching for more coffee or sugary snacks? Well, that's not happening for me anymore. When your body is actually nourished, it runs so much better. I've tried other greens powders before, but Field of Greens is genuinely different. The quality is next level and you can taste it. It's become my go-to, especially on those days when my eating isn't exactly Instagram worthy, because we all have those days, right? And here's the thing. They are so confident that you'll love it too, that they offer a 100% money back guarantee. That's how much they believe in their product. So I got you 15% off your first order and free rush shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use promo code MINDLOVE. That's promo code MINDLOVE at fieldofgreens.com. fieldofgreens.com.
Yeah, I have gone down a similar path, just minus the being so deep in channeling. But in this last year, it's been one of my focuses, just practicing getting into that meditative state. And still, actually, still, I go back and forth with trying to just sort of integrate what I had learned growing up with what I know now. And I've come to the same conclusions as you did. There's a book that I've been reading called Meeting Jesus Again for the First Time. And it's pretty phenomenal. And I'm actually really excited because I was able to give it to my mom. And like you probably know, when your beliefs start to separate, there's certain things that are touchy. And there's like messages that come to me. I try to focus on that in between of what we do have in common. So when I speak to certain family members, I'll focus more on the God aspect, or I'll often use universe in my own life, but I'll try to meet them where they are. And I find that for some reason, I'm usually met with just the hard points of the areas where we disagree. Like, it's like, no, you're not doing it this way. Jesus is the way, blah, blah, blah. And so it's just been difficult for me. And I found myself for a while, like, kind of disliking Jesus in a way. And I didn't want to feel that either. I'm like, I feel like the very least he was like a Buddha, maybe something more. This book has been a really great integration of the two, because the man who wrote it actually still considers himself a Christian, but has changed his definition of what Christianity is to be more of a relationship with God. But his background is actually growing up Christian, but then becoming a biblical scholar. And in doing that, questioning his whole faith, because he learned so many of the things that he thought were true were actually made up, and not in a way that's necessarily negative, but it's like the evolution of the religion. For example, the book of John is the only one where Jesus tends to call himself a version of God. And that's the book that doesn't have historical accuracy. It's the one that's been sort of created as the faith evolved after Jesus's death. So he discerns between the pre-Easter Jesus and the post-Easter Jesus. So I just find it really interesting for anyone out there listening that has that background or does want to find that kind of meat in the middle information. That book has just been really great for me. But I'm curious, for people like you, where you say that everyone has this ability to channel. And I've interviewed a lot of channelers, and they all say something similar, where they then teach it and they allow people, or they help people to get to that space to be able to receive the messages. But I'm wondering, for you, your first encounters with it came so effortlessly. It was something that came to you more than you searching for it. What's your understanding of why that happens for some people versus other people having to train from the beginning before they ever have an experience like that?
Well, I know that it was my insatiable desire to answer those big questions and to know the truth. And it was, I read every book. I read many books on channeled books. I loved Wayne Dyer. I was reading all these spiritual books, and I was laser focused on truth, answers. Who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? How do I live it? What's our highest potential? What's really, just from the source. Because when I read channeled information, That was what I most deeply resonated with. And I got to the point, even before I was channeling the council in this way, that's what I was drawn to. And the council will say, if you're drawn to channel information in any way, you yourself are also a channel. So I do believe it was my focus that drew that to me. I think we all do have these experiences, but oftentimes we dismiss them and we go, oh, well, maybe I just made that up, or they don't share it with anyone. And so they're kind of in this isolated state and they forget about it, or it loses its meaning versus, I have this incredible master's class community from people all over the world that they get together each week and they share the incredible experiences they're having. And it expands everybody, and them being able to talk about the experiences they had helps them to go into a place of knowing the truth of that it wasn't just random or that they can deny it at some point. To date, I've taken over 5,000 people through my process of learning how to channel, and I've never had anyone who said they can't do it. It's a natural thing. We all do it. What people don't necessarily understand is we all do it in our own unique way. This is my particular way. And I'll tell you, I know what was occurring for me when I was doing the automatic writing was I felt like, oh my God, I could just feel that there's so much information that wants to come through and I can't possibly write this down fast enough. And I think it's probably my higher self or my soul that's like, okay, then we need to orchestrate a verbal channeling experience so she can start verbally channeling this. So all this information can come through much faster and so much more of it. We are all in our own way an athlete that's in the zone. They are channeling. When you think of someone and then they call, that's channeling. When you're having lunch with a friend and you're just so in the moment and something comes through you and you're like, I don't even know where that came from. And they're like, what did you say? And you're like, I don't know. It just came, that's channeling. Art, music, poetry. People will say, it's weird because sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I write these poems. That's channeling. It's just connecting to that source energy, but it expresses through everybody uniquely. I tell people to start the process of automatic writing and make a space and a time for yourself each day and ask, what does my soul want me to know? Start with that and then ask, what's the highest words for me today? What's the highest message? Whatever words feel good to you, but what does my soul want me to know is an easy, good place to start. The problem is most people don't trust it, number one. I had a woman who was doing the process and she's like, I don't think I'm getting anything. I don't think this is working. And I said, well, send it to me and I'll read it. And it said, you are so loved. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Everything is working out for you. You are guided and protected every step of the way. And it just went on and on and on. And, I read it back to her and she started crying. And I said, you know how you know this is from your higher self? Because if you got a message from your head, what would it say? You're not doing it right. You haven't done enough. You did this wrong. You should have done this. You should be doing this. You should be doing this. None of her messages that she was getting through automatic writing had any judgment. They were all pure love. They clearly were not something she was making up in her head because they were messages of just absolute pure love. So most people don't trust it. For most people, it is so right there that they're expecting this big, like booming voice of God or like some entity to come into their body and their consciousness. It doesn't happen like that. I'm fully aware when I'm channeling and I can hear noises. I can hear the dog bark. I can hear a door shut. I can hear all that stuff. I'm just translating the consciousness that is streaming through. So that's what I'm focused on. I definitely see and experience things from a higher level of awareness. The other important thing is this: channeling is just like any other relationship in your life. If you spend time with it, if you're devoted to it, if it's fun to be together, if you trust each other, you're going to have an amazing relationship with your higher self or your soul or your guides or whatever you're tuning into or would like to tune into. But most people go, I don't have time for that. I don't really even believe that. I don't even know if it really works for me. I don't really, they don't create a relationship with it. And so, these are the types of things that while everybody has the ability to do that, a lot of people doubt themselves, don't trust themselves, think that they're making it up, don't really focus on it. And when they're actually having those experiences, they may just sort of disregard them as something random when it's clearly them tuning into source and having an experience. I'd like to go back to what you said too, because it's actually part of mastery and being kind to speak to people in their language. I love the reference that you gave. For some people, they can hear the word universe. For some people, they can hear the word God. For some people, they can hear the word soul, right? It's actually kind to do exactly what you said you're doing with your family, which is to speak to them in their language. I'll tell you my own experience with this, and really it was a channeled experience that I had, and a message that came through to me in automatic writing, that unless you accept yourself and approve of yourself just the way you are, you're going to keep drawing to you experiences of people who don't approve of you and don't accept what you believe. And it's okay that they don't understand. And I sat with that for a few days until I really got to the point where it's like, you're right. It's okay if some people don't understand. Some people very close to me don't understand. It's okay. And I got to the place where I didn't need anyone to accept it or approve of it. There was just no way I could go through the rest of my life without sharing the council's wisdom with the world. I imagined myself at the end of my life having stayed in my corporate career and never sharing this wisdom with the world. And it was just, there's no possible way I could do that. I had to share this wisdom with the world. It was absolutely choiceless. I just knew I had to do it. And it was that moment that I went, you know what? If I'm the only one who accepts what I'm doing and approves of me and understands it, that's okay. Because I know I am absolutely doing what I am on this earth to do. I know this is my purpose. I know this is why I'm here. I know this wisdom can change anybody's life, no matter what their situation. And I have to get this in the world. And one of my very dearest family members called me a few days after that and said, Sarah, I heard one of your channelings on Instagram, or it must have been Facebook, and I just don't understand. Why can't you use your normal voice? And why do you have to call it the council? And, why do you have to do all that? And they just said, I don't understand. And I just took a deep breath and I said, that's okay. It's okay. And I just spoke from my heart what came through me in that moment, which was, well, I first said, you didn't understand what I did when I did IT infrastructure strategy consulting either. That's okay. You don't have to understand, right? How many parents do you meet, or that they can't, my son's in technology. I don't know what he does, but right. Or my daughter's, I don't know, she works for this company, right?
And they're not bothered by that.
And they're not bothered by that, right? And it is an inside internal shift that you make. Once I made that shift, not only did I have complete and total love, acceptance, approval from everyone in my family started actually listening to it in their own way, in their own time. It took a couple of years for some of them, but by the time I was sending my book out into the world and realizing my family members who think I'm a motivational speaker are now reading this book, right? To which their reply was, one person that comes to mind in my family that's extremely Christian and knows nothing but bought the book. And she told me she was buying the book and she was reading the book. And she said, I couldn't put it down. I sat and I read the entire book cover to cover. And I loved it. And I was like, wow, this isn't about me. This is about the energy of this book. This is about the love in this book and the light that this book is bringing to the world. And it's not about me. It's about anyone who's ready for that awakening or coming into the truth of who they are and remembering who they are and why they're here. It's about that. It's not about me. And so I understand totally what you're saying. And it's kind of this like 1 foot in, 1 foot out sort of thing until it's not. And you just accept in yourself, I am who I am. And you don't have to change, but I have to be true to me.
I don't know why it took me so long to invest in good bedding. I resisted it for years, but something flipped in me about 3 years ago. And now I'm basically a pillow connoisseur. I've tried them all, and I get weirdly excited about good bedding. Because here's the thing, we spend a third of our lives in bed, and the quality of that time affects literally everything else, which is why I'm so excited to tell you about my latest obsession, Lagoon Sleep Pillows. What sets them apart is their matching system. You take a quick 2-minute quiz about your sleep style and your preferences, and then they match you with your perfect pillow. I was matched with their Otter pillow, and I am so impressed. Lately, I've just needed more support, and this seems to cradle me in all the right places. I'm also low-key obsessed with their travel pillow, which I use for way more than just travel. I actually hug it, use it as leg support, and of course, take it on trips with me. Well, the secret is in their adjustable fill. You can add or remove it to get that perfect alignment for your spine. A study even found that the right supportive pillow can improve sleep quality by 63%. And Lagoon lets you try their matched pillow for 100 nights risk-free. Free returns, no questions asked. Falling asleep has never been easier. I toss and turn less and just wake up feeling refreshed every morning. Go to lagoonsleep.com and take their awesome 2-minute sleep quiz to find your match. Use the code MIND for 15% off your first purchase.
Have so many things I want to dive into from what you said. But the first one was around how you talked about how we talk ourselves out of believing our experiences. And it's just like, when you're walking down the street and you've got something on your mind and you don't notice the beauty around you versus I haven't in the last few weeks because I'm really pregnant and it's cold outside, but going on walks and just having it be like a sensory walk. Like I'm just going down the street to notice the things I haven't noticed before. And it's so fun because I've done these walks 100 times and I'll notice things that I actually haven't seen before. And it's not just about that moment. It's about reminding myself that I can access that in any area of my life. There are things that I'm not going to notice until I'm in the headspace or the energy to see those things. And so you had said even in the beginning of your book that we might find our logical minds objecting or even arguing to some of the information. And you had recommended to move that awareness from our heads to our hearts. And earlier this month, I was interviewing Michael Mayo, who also channels, and he teaches people to get into that state. And he was teaching that, he calls it sitting in the power. And instead of just being in our own bodies the whole time, which I've focused on doing a lot just because I've been moving my awareness from my head to my body was a big part of my healing. But then realizing it doesn't have to just be limited to those confines either. What about just the area around it? What about the area around that? And so based on the teachings of people like you and him and Paul Selig and whoever I can find this information from, I've just been kind of practicing sensing an energy that I don't always tune into. And so I'm wondering for you, is that the same process that you get into while channeling? Where are you focusing? Is it a no focus? I know the more you effort, the more you tend to kind of lose the experience. So how do you guide people to get to that place of that meditative state that the woman in the yoga class taught you to get into?
Yeah. So, first, I would say anything that brings you joy can also help you get into that meditative state. I have great respect for meditation. And I know for many people, that is the way that they connect into higher levels of consciousness. There was a time that I had a meditation practice. I guess for me now, meditation to me is getting into a higher state of awareness and a state of joy. The council says the instant manifestation of allowing is joy. So a lot of times you'll hear, and the council talks about it a lot in the book, getting into this place of allowing. And you'll know you're in that state of allowing by the feeling of joy. So I have these two little kittens that love to run around and play and chase each other. And I can feel when I'm watching them, I'm in a completely different level of energy and awareness and just pure joy and openness. And a lot of times my greatest insights come in those moments. whether you're out in nature or you're riding your bike. For some people, meditation is a really great way. One of the things the council talks about in the book is that the formula, like the formula for all creation, including creating your reality, creating your thoughts, creating the life that you want, all of that, consciousness is what moves energy into form. So when you're raising your awareness, when you're raising your level of consciousness, when you're opening up to a grander perspective on life and what's possible, and like what you're saying, your awareness is allowing you to see more than you would if you were focused in a lower level of consciousness or distracted or in your head. So as you raise your level of consciousness or awareness, all of a sudden you begin to summon a lot more energy. You might feel good, you might feel happier, you might feel more joyful, you might feel actual physical energy moving into your body like you hadn't felt before. That is what moves our experiences and creates our reality in physical form. Consciousness moves energy into form. So as you're just more aware that you're more aware, you are actually summoning more energy, the energy that heals your body, the energy of pure love, the energy of abundance and well-being, the energy of instant manifestation, the energy of, what you need showing up even before you know you need it, the energy of being in the right place at the right time, the energy of drawing to you the next perfect step in whatever you're doing, right? Those are the things that begin to move into form in our reality. When you're in a lower level of consciousness, like fear, separation, lack, limitation, there's actually a constriction of the level of energy you're allowing into your being, which is why you feel the resistance. And so when you want to create something in that moment, it's usually out of the lack of something and a very limited flow of energy, which is why it seems like it's a struggle or difficult to create or manifest what you want. Does that make sense?
It does. And I wrote down a quote from your book that is something that I've known before, but it was just so short and concise. I was like, this is something that I want written where I can always see it. And it's, you don't get what you want, you get what you are. And I actually sent that as a text to a friend, and it ended up unraveling this whole conversation. She's like, I feel like I'm figuring out all the stuff that I'm going through just based on this conversation. And so, but it's just such a reminder. It's like when you first learn about manifestation or energy or gratitude practice, it's not about figuring out all the things that you want because you're in the energy of want, which is also the energy of lack, versus that's why when you really feel into your gratitude practice, it's acting as if it were already happening or that it's already on its way to you and getting into the gratitude of the things that are coming to you rather than the things that you don't have and you want. And so it's all kind of the same concept, but I've been going through this period right now. I'm going to have a baby anytime between now and February, end of February. We'll see. But I've had a lot that I've wanted to accomplish before this baby comes. And so I've just been sticking to deadlines, waking up, meditating every day. I haven't missed a day in 6 months as of today, actually. And so I've just been, it's more than being proud of myself because it's more like I'm building a new self-belief and I've been building a new self-belief for the whole past decade, but there's something that shifted since I've had my first baby. I think it's because I've been pushed into this version of me where there are no excuses. Like I have to get up and do stuff for this little guy. And so I'm like, if I can do it for him, why can't I do these things for myself? Why do I talk myself out of so much? And so I've just been in this energy and I've been receiving a lot of good things in return. And it's not even directly related to what I'm doing. It's like something that was supposed to come to me a while ago that all of a sudden showed up or whatever it is. And so I was texting this friend about that. And I was just like, I feel like the universe can finally meet me where I am. And it's a place that I've been trying to get to for a while. And that's when I sent that quote. And so it just is further proof that whenever I allow myself to get there, which is funny because I'll forget sometimes. I've been in this place before, but then I've forgotten for a period of time based on what's going on around me. And then I'm like, oh, why is none of this working? And it's like, well, I'm not being what I want to be. I'm wanting it, or I'm yearning for it, or I'm wishing things could be different, versus this is what I have, this is who I am, and this is what I'm stepping into fully aware and consciously.
Yeah. Oh, I love what you said. And it is a powerful shift when we understand this, not just understand it, but experience it. That you don't get what you want, you don't get what you think you need, you get more of what you are. And I'll tell you the story of in my master's class advanced program, people can ask questions of the council. And this woman said, I've known I was supposed to be wealthy my whole life, but I'm really struggling with money, and I can't pay my bills, and yet, I want to be wealthy. I want to be a wealthy woman. And so the council said, well, what do your friends and family think about your wealth? Do they think you're wealthy? And she said, no, of course not. All my friends and family know how much I'm struggling with money, and they're really worried about me. They know I can't pay my bills. And so the council said, well, how do you expect the universe to get the signal that you're wealthy and attract that to you if the people that are most closest to you are getting a completely different signal that you are in lack, right? And so they said, when your friends and family start reflecting back to you the energy of wealth and abundance that you're embodying, you'll know that the universe is clearly getting the message as well. And recently on a master's class call, they also added to that saying, your technology even will tell you exactly who you are and what you're focused on at this point. I told you I very serendipitously ended up with 2 amazing kittens about 3 months after I said I wasn't going to get another cat. The universe does sometimes know best. But now I watch all these funny cat videos on Instagram and stuff. I mean, that's the ones I like. That's the ones I watch. So now every time I go to Instagram, it's always like a funny cat video, right? And the same thing, if you like something that's this spiritual message of the day, right? Now all of a sudden I get like 10 different feeds of the spiritual message of the day. I mean, if you see one of those law of attraction things that, oh, you're going to, be a billionaire in the next 30 days, and you press like, you're going to see more and more stuff like that, because that's what you're focused on. That's what you're saying yes to. That's what you're feeling into. That's what you're, who you are in that moment. And so technology reflects that back to us. Our friends and family reflect that back to us. So of course, it only makes sense that what we are, who we are being, what we are putting out in the world is exactly what we're drawing to us, exactly what we are getting more of.
I love that. And I like I know that technology will do that. It's creepy. Like sometimes I'm like, I never liked this. I never searched for it. I had a conversation in the other room.
Yes,
Stop it.
It's true. I had that the other day. I mentioned the place that I was always wanted to go, and the next time I got an Instagram, it was like,
like, don't
7
lie to
days
me.
in Bali.
You are
I'm like,
listening.
okay,
Always.
you're listening. But that's, but so is the universe. So maybe these technology, algorithms and all these things and whatever's going on is actually a tool we should use to our benefit to see what we're really putting out there, the signal that you're really putting out there, that the universe is responding to you. And even more so, the council talks about us being this force field of consciousness, that you're not just this body, you're this force field of consciousness. And that's either really expansive or it's really contracted. But that force field of consciousness is comprised of or made up of particles of infinite creation, particles of infinite creation, the particles that are in everything ever created and ever will be. And these particles of infinite creation are always responding to us. So what you are projecting into your force field of consciousness is what the particles of infinite creation are responding to. So you can start to use those tools and what your family and friends are reflecting back to you to know, okay, this is clearly the message that the particles that are in whatever I'm creating are also receiving as well.
This morning, I had a message from my own email newsletter, The Morning Mind Love. It's similar to Mike Dooley's. It's just a message from your higher self, a short little note. And today's message was about how we should acknowledge what we've already been given. And the analogy it uses, like, have you considered that the way you live right now is you actually live by better means than royalty of centuries ago, and have you really appreciated that? And at the same time, well, about half hour later, I was going back through the notes in your book, and you talked about how it's so, well, the council talks about how it's so important to acknowledge your personal transformation and to pause to appreciate all that you've become before you focus on your next adventure, and really pause to appreciate all that you've received. And I've thought of that in the way of, shifting into that energy of gratitude. But the way it's explained in your book is that that's also a part of the becoming. It's like an integration. That's how you receive it. And so that was kind of a missing piece for me, because I guess in the way I was looking at it before, it seemed like extra versus now it's like, no, it's this necessary piece of integration. If you actually want to receive these things, that's what it takes. Even if you feel like you've already received it for a second. And it reminds me of Jim Rohn. My husband practically has his books memorized, but he said something about, basically, if whether you win or whether you earn $1 million, you better learn how to become a millionaire or you'll lose it. And it's the same concept that was said half a century ago, or however long ago you lived. And it's just about that receiving. So you can already receive that $1 million, but you might lose it if you don't take that moment to become it, to receive it, to integrate it.
Well, and to live it. If you, many times this practice of someone wanting an answer about what they should do or what type of take it from the reverse. If that $1 million was sitting in your bank account right now, what would you do today? How would you live your life today? Would you do this thing? Would you do that thing? How would you live your life today? And when you really bring yourself into this awareness and feel yourself into this experience, okay, I have $1 million. How am I going to live today? Do you live differently than you did yesterday? What are you focused on? What are you thinking about? How are you speaking? Right? Because if you say, I want $1 million, and then the very next thing you say is, oh, I can't believe I got this bill. It's so frustrating. I don't have the money to pay it. Or, your car breaks down. And you're like, oh, this is awful. I can't believe this happened to me. I can't afford this. And I can't, that you instantly go into the old habit. In that moment, you're doubting and denying the very thing that could be moving into your experience and your reality. So as much as people say, I want to create this reality, they never really feel their way into the experience of truly living that reality. And then they revert back to the habits of denying and doubting that that's even possible for them. And then they go, oh, this stuff doesn't work. It does work. It works perfectly. But you can just simply notice, the process that the council shares is, feel into that realm of imagination where anything's possible, like feel into your pure potential. In my opinion, that imagination is a state of consciousness in a vibration and a frequency where I truly believe our soul or our higher self is placing in our quote unquote imagination realities that are possible for us. And I can think of different things that when I have gone into a meditation or my imagination and seen something, I know that that was coming from my soul. And an interesting thing that the council has brought through lately is, for years we've talked about the law of attraction, the what is up to you, but the how and the when is not up to you. And they're saying, well, the what, when it really is coming from your soul, the how and the when are also coming from your soul. So the more integrated you are with every part of you, especially that higher self part of you, the how and the when are part of your experience and something that is also part of you creating your reality. And so most people say they want it, but it is really feeling your way into that experience and then just not doubting or denying it all day long. Most people think there's all this hard focus energy work and visualizing every day, every hour of the day. You could do all of that, and then your next thought is doubting or denying your abundance, and it doesn't matter how much you visualized it. If you go right back into doubting and denying it.
It was one of the quotes I wrote down. If you cannot figure out how something could be possible for you, remember that it's not your job to figure it out. It's your job to feel your way into these dreams in your heart. And that makes total sense to me, that it's the how that trips us up when we're still so used to being in our logical minds. But the closer we become to really knowing, and not just for a second thinking it's possible, but really knowing, and doubt isn't our default anymore, then yeah, we start to be able to see a little bit bigger of a picture. But the human versions of us can never see that bigger picture. And so the more that we're able to access this deeper part of ourselves, the higher parts of ourselves, yeah, that bigger picture becomes a little bit more accessible and a little bit more accessible.
Yeah.
That reminds me of going back to Jesus or Buddha or whoever else was as close to enlightenment, however you want to see that. I know sometimes that word trips people up because there's just so many views of what that could be, but really that integration of the soul self or the God self and the human self. And the more that you stop seeing your own separateness, the more that you are able to access the universal wisdom and knowledge and all of that. But I'd love for you to shed some clarity on something you mentioned in the book, the difference between energy and consciousness.
So I think of consciousness as awareness, your ability to perceive something, to be aware of it, right? Energy is this vibration, this frequency, this light. Imagine shining a light on an image, right? The image is the awareness, the light is the energy. But without the energy and without the awareness, you don't bring that image into your reality. So they talk about God really as the consciousness and the energy that created everything. It is the consciousness and the energy in everything, right? So you mentioned enlightenment. The council uses the word realization, and they define realization as the integration of every part of you. So for most people, they are denying or doubting a part of them. And the council never uses the word ego. They don't talk about ego. They may talk about your incredible human, your incredible personality. But when you start bringing this energy in of fighting the ego, you're actually rejecting a part of yourself. And in judging that you have this part of yourself that you want to reject, brings up unworthiness, brings up really this feeling that something's wrong with you. So it keeps you in this perpetual state of, I'm not enough yet, I'm not good enough, I'm not loved because I have this part of me I've got to get rid of, right? And they say the very opposite. It's about integrating every part of you into your wholeness and your completeness and perfection. One of their core teachings has always been, you are everything you wish to be. You already are, but allow yourself to be totally satiated in the becoming. That's why we're here. And so at one point in my life, I realized that, I went to this kind of like awkward teenage stage where I, at the time, didn't think I looked the way I was supposed to look, right? And I would not let anybody show me a picture of that. Like I would get rid of all those pictures. And I had this awareness like, oh my gosh, I'm like rejecting a part of me. Like this was a part of me. And I realized that it was the part of me that was like really playful and really sort of silly and, but felt like I looked kind of awkward or, that stage, between being a teenager and a little kid. And I shifted the way I saw that. I just saw those pictures of me. I was like, oh my gosh, I love that part of me. I love that little girl. Like she's so beautiful and perfect. And oh my gosh. And I could just feel in my own body that shift in how I felt about that picture about me. All of a sudden, this energy started flowing in my body. Like I felt inspired. I felt playful. I felt really lighthearted. I just felt completely different because I was now integrating that part of me. And I share that just as a simple example of how we do this in our everyday lives that may not sound like a big, deep spiritual experience, but it does matter. And it's the thing I see more than anything at all is people actually believing that they're worthy, that they think they still need to do something in order to earn their worthiness, or they're not enough yet because they haven't accomplished this or that, right? And the council says, you don't achieve it, you don't accomplish it, you actually realize it. And to realize it, you must come into the great integration of every part of you and come into your wholeness, your completeness, your perfection, while also knowing that you're every day. I mean, I had this conversation with a friend the other day. It's like, I can't even imagine what life's going to be like in 5 or 10 years with all the awareness, again, like you talked about your own personal transformation, with all the awareness that has come in the last 5 years or 10 years or last year or in the last, I don't even feel like the same person from last month. I can't even imagine who we are becoming. So it's knowing that you're worthy and whole and complete. You already are, and you're also becoming, and you can enjoy that beautiful unfolding, knowing that you are creating it.
It's just incredible how I can tell that I'm in an energy that I want to be in because it's like the algorithm in real life, you know? Like you just said so many things. I just posted something on Instagram the other day about self-rejection. Are you accidentally rejecting part of yourself? And it was something that I realized I had been doing because I went through so much trauma in my 20s. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, that was a shit show over there. Like that poor girl. And I'm othering her when I realize that she's the one who got me here. She's the one who made those first few steps. And I was talking to Cheryl Strayed, author of Wild, and we were having that conversation, and she's like, was talking about how people do that to her, where it's like, well, now you're this big successful author, and your life was really a mess back then. And she's like, yeah, I felt broken and hopeless and whatever, but I also decided to go hike the PCT. That wasn't a broken decision, you know? And it's like
Yeah.
we give so much weight to these mistakes or these things that we wouldn't have done now, not really honoring and acknowledging the things that version of us did right, or what else that version of us had that maybe we're rejecting, as you said. And if we're doing that, then we're not really feeling into it. And actually, like a year and a half ago, I posted an exclusive episode to my membership community, episode 17, with Vincent Genna, who the title of it is The Ego and God Are One. And he had a very similar message where we're always, the spiritual community, it's always like, oh, the ego self, blah, blah, blah. But recognizing that that's a part of us too. And that's the part of us that tends to seek what we're looking for now. It's not the split between the two. It's a combination. And in your book, that's how the council describes oneness, which was also another kind of key for me, because it's so hard to think of, oh, oneness, we are all one. And yes, I get there sometimes, and it's something that I focus on. And I know that there's truth in that, because that's why we will create experiences or relationships where we keep calling the same relationship back to ourselves, if that's the part that needs to be worked on. Our whole reality is a mirror. But something about the way the council said that oneness is more of a uniting of pure consciousness, of that energy that's out there, rather than just thinking, oh, I've got to feel one with my neighbor and that guy over there, whatever, because it's a lot harder to do, or you can't really feel your way into that. And the last part of it that I just feel like kind of goes so well into it was two different quotes that I actually want as like my iPhone wallpaper. Was, whatever you feel is what you contribute to the world. And that is so true, because so many of us are still trying to make our mark on the world, trying to change the world, but we're trying to change the world so that we feel better, rather than changing how we feel so that we can change the world. And especially in a time right now where the world is pretty chaotic and there's a lot of different views out there, but regardless of what side you're on, how you're looking at the things that are happening, the amount of times I see online right now, people writing like, I hate the world, or I hate everything right now, or whatever. And the other part of it was how the council says, if we want to master life, we have to really love the human experience. And really everything here is designed to wake us up. And so maybe that's why the algorithm works so creepily, because, it's like showing you, hey, this is how it can work. It's also how it is working. And it's not just on Instagram, it's everywhere else. And so just whatever you see, rather than rejecting it, it's like, what is this trying to tell me? What deeper truth does it have to it? What am I rejecting by rejecting this? And it might seem like you're just rejecting some evil, but why is that evil there right in front of you? What do you need to know? Or why are you looking at it as evil? I mean, I know some things are pretty clearly terrible, but why are you seeing it? And what are you feeling? And how can you transmute that energy into something more productive rather than having it bring you down? Because then that is what you're contributing to the world.
It's not about not taking action against the things that you in support of the things that you love, but it's the state of consciousness you're in when you're taking those actions. And so you can't be in fear and be advocating for peace. You have to create that peace within you first. And it's a shift for a lot of people. Ultimately, we go back to what you're saying about that 20-year-old part of you. Love that part of you instead of denying love for that part of you. And on a day-to-day basis, being aware of where you deny love for yourself over the silliest little things. Are you going to deny love for yourself in this moment because you're running 5 minutes late? Are you going to deny love for yourself because something happened in another part of the world that is not part of your experience? You're going to deny love for yourself in this moment. And if you were to ask yourself, what do you most want for those people? And the answer would probably be peace. And yet you're sitting here in complete disharmony and chaos and stress inside of yourself, wanting to create peace for others. When you look at it that way, it's like so obvious that, oh, I must first align to peace in my own experience, create peace in my own experience, create my own world as peaceful. And then I'm contributing to peace on this planet. And you then start realizing that, there is a lot of more peace in many ways on our planet than there ever has been before. And then that continues to expand. And so just being aware of that, most everyone I meet in doing this work wants to make an impact, wants to make the world a better place, wants to serve, wants to do good in the world. And the council would say, the most important thing is you creating a beautiful, peaceful life of abundance and freedom and joy for yourself. You living your highest potential is the greatest way you serve. You creating your reality the way you want it to be. You creating that life of peace and joy and love and harmony and freedom. You fully awakening to who you are and the power you have and how worthy you are and the love that you are is what literally creates a pathway that makes it easier for everybody else when they are ready to remember their power and their truth and awaken to their own worthiness. It makes it so much easier for them. We talk a bit about like neural pathways in your brain. And once you go down it once, continue to go down it, that's a habit, right? Or you drive your car to the grocery store the same way. First time you kind of had to pay attention, which way am I supposed to go? You do it enough, that way, you don't even have to think about it. The same is true for every single person, every single one of us who wake up to our power, our worthiness, our truth, the love that we are, create joy and peace and harmony and love and freedom within ourselves. You are making it easier and easier and easier for everyone, no matter what their circumstances might be, to also awaken to their own truth.
I remember when that first became clear, it was with such practical things. It was back when I first started really understanding what being vulnerable meant and showing up in that way, and then noticing that people would meet me in a different way than they would before. And so we can see it so much in behaviors. It's like you show somebody that you can do this, and it gives them permission to do it too. But the same is true with the energy that we hold. The same is true for the 4-minute mile. You have to, people need to see that it's possible. And then all of a sudden it's like opens the floodgates and all of these other people can suddenly do it. So when you look at it that way and you know that whatever you feel is what you contribute to the world, it just makes your own inner peace and harmony so much more valuable, to where so many of us especially the moms out there thinking, well, that's selfish or that's on the back burner because I've got all these other people to take care of. But what are you showing them? Are you showing them that the self doesn't deserve that first? Are you showing them that your energy doesn't matter? Are you showing them that you always put everyone else above yourself? Like you're showing them the opposite of what actually is. And so the last thing I kind of want to touch on is this idea of the new earth. It's something that Eckhart Tolle talked about. And now it's something that I even look back and knowing what I know now, it explains the rapture for me, where that always just seemed so odd. Like, really? All these people are going to disappear? But the council talks about, and so does Paul Selig, and so do all of these other channelers, that it's not a different place. New Earth is not a different place. It's a different state of consciousness. And so at these moments when the world is full of turmoil and chaos, we can see the chaos and the tragedy. And as the council says, a lot of people do see things like that, and you go into a state of unconsciousness. We're focusing on the danger, we're focusing on the insecurity, versus just deciding that we can have peace amidst the chaos. We can still raise our frequency amidst the chaos. And that is what is ultimately creating this new earth. And so you're creating what you feel. And so if you allow yourself to get stuck in that for so long, then you're just creating exactly what you don't want to see. And so Paul Selig says you're concretizing it. And so I feel like that is the extra permission I need going into having another baby, still running a business, doing while the world sometimes seems to be on fire. And so I'd love to leave listeners with something to focus on, whether it's a practice or just a message, to really help them instill what they've learned in this episode throughout the week. If you were going to leave them with one thing, what would it be?
Well, I think it's what you were just talking about, which is, in the council's opinion, your ultimate responsibility, because this question comes up so many times. But I'm a mother and I'm responsible for all these things, and I'm a business owner and I'm responsible, and I have all these responsibilities. And they say your ultimate responsibility is for your consciousness level, your thoughts, the stories you're telling yourself, how you feel in each moment. That is your ultimate responsibility. They say the thoughts that you're thinking affect your emotions. Your emotions affect the way that you feel. The way that you feel affects your vibration, which is determining the reality you're experiencing. And so you're responsible for the thoughts you're thinking and the stories you're telling yourself. You're responsible for the level of consciousness you're in. Are you in lack and limitation and separation? Are you in pure love? And the more you elevate your consciousness and your vibration through awareness, through practice, all the things we've talked about today, you literally live in a completely different world. And the council talked about this for a long time before I ever experienced it. They talked about the third dimension, the fourth dimension, and the fifth dimension of pure love, or heaven on earth, or a new earth, where you literally elevate your consciousness and your awareness such that your experience is that of living in a new earth reality. And they channeled through me many messages about that. I read these messages, I heard them, I was aware, I started to perceive it, but it is absolutely my reality. And my experience of the world is more abundant than ever before, more good in the world than ever before, more beautiful world than ever before. We have more abundance on our planet than ever before. There are more people cured of advanced diseases than ever before. There's more loving, happy relationships than ever before. There's more conscious people who are doing good for the planet and others than ever before, truly. And you do begin to live in a completely different world. And the things that I have to like really go back deep in my file cabinet to even sort of remember what that old world looked like, because it's just not my experience anymore. And I don't have some ability that someone else doesn't have. We all have this ability. Was it a journey for me? Absolutely. But if it is your deepest heart's desire to live in an experience of heaven on earth in a joyful, peaceful, abundant, harmonious world of freedom and love and whatever reality you want to create, you will have it. You will experience it. And let the journey to that be the fun part. Enjoy the beauty and the miracles and the magical things that happen along the way. And if it is your choosing and you continue to perceive and be aware and focus upon that as something that's possible for you, it has to be your reality. And there's so many people living in that state of consciousness now. As I mentioned, I have a master's class community. And one of the things for me was, probably very much how you feel or have felt at times. It's like we talk about these things here and then you go back into the rest of your life and it's like, it's not talked about. Well, now my experience is all day long, these are the kind of conversations I have. We have community all over the world that are having groups and calls every day that are talking about these things from the highest level of love and joy. It's absolutely a reality where you can be surrounded with people who you share and grow and expand and play with this wisdom, and it's a joyful experience. So I would go back to how important it is, first and foremost, how you feel, what you're thinking, your perception of things, your own personal vibration. The practice for me, and the council says, because it's so simple, most people don't do it. And if you want to, first go run around the block or go run a mile and then come back and do it. So it seems like it's not that simple. That's okay. But really, it's stop, take 3 deep breaths, go from your head down into your heart, and just fill yourself up in this moment with all of you. Go to that higher place. I loved what you said about oneness and what all that means. Essentially, to me, oneness means there is this unseen consciousness and energy that connects all of us. We may not be able to see it with our physical senses, but oneness to me is to know that there is this unseen consciousness and energy field that connects us to everything, and we are not separate from it. The second you are perceiving yourself as separate from whatever that is, now you're lowering your consciousness, lowering your vibration, you're in lack of it, you're in the struggle, you have to push, you want it, you need it. All you have to do is stop and take 3 deep breaths, go from your head down into your heart, fill yourself up with all of you, and feel your way into your oneness with that consciousness and energy that connects you to everything, that is in everything. So I hope that's helpful.
It is. And thank you so much for really shifting your energy enough to bring all of these messages to us, because I know, especially right now, your book just provided me with a lot of peace and understanding to what's going on. And it's especially helpful to hear, like, it would be so frustrating if every time I read a channeled book, the messages were so contradictory, but they're always just perfectly in line with just a slightly different way of saying it. And it's when you hear things from all of these different people, spirits, energies, and they're all the same thing, that's when I feel like it really starts to, it's hard to deny the truth in it. And so for listeners that are resonating and want to learn more about you, your master's class, your books, where's the best place for them to connect?
SaraLandon.com, and you'll find there's an entire tab that's dedicated to free resources. That we've done several courses. We have our master's class advanced program. We have an MP3 program, which is new channeled messages every month. The master's class advanced program, you can ask your questions to the council. I also talk about how to integrate this and live it, because I think it's so important. I just tell people, if you go to the website, just if there's a course that resonates with you, if there's an image that resonates with you, just start there and just explore and have fun with it. We also have a YouTube channel, Sara Landon Life, LIFE, Instagram, Facebook, all of those mediums. We share lots of different free resources. You can get the book at Amazon or Barnes & Noble, anywhere where books or audiobooks are sold. Wherever you start is perfect, and follow your guidance. Let the energy and the light guide the way, and have fun with all of this. Have fun with all of this, really. At some point, I think it became a job. And when you bring it back to, this is what I love, and this is what's fun, and this is what brings me joy, and you start to play in it more, it gets so much lighter and so much easier. So have fun with it.
All the links for this episode will be at mindlove.com/300. Your challenge for this week is simple, as Sara put it. You're going to just intend to connect to oneness. And while you're doing this, trust wholeheartedly that this is accessible to you, that this is accessible to all of us. Remind yourself that what you perceive as a solid body is actually 99.99999% space. Everything else? What is that? Have you asked yourself? I believe it's God. However you like to define God. Source, divinity, oneness, the divine matrix. We already know that nature has a natural intelligence. There's something that runs through all of us that creates this divine design that is so intricate that most of us could never even fathom it if we weren't experiencing it. And even now, when we're mind, body in this experience, we still don't understand the intricacies. We still could never have dreamed this. So who or what did? What is that stuff that connects us all? Remember how important our intention is, just where we allow our awareness to reside. And so many of us are running on autopilot, allowing ourselves to think the exact same thoughts we were thinking yesterday and the day before and the day before that. And so we just create our own problems. We feel stuck in the world that we've designed from our own minds, forgetting that we have access to tap into something greater. So remember, just by shifting our awareness to something, like oneness, like source, like God, whatever appeals to you, can change our experience. So practice that. Fill yourself up with the divine part of you. Feel that part. Feel that not so empty space, because maybe it's actually divine energy that's been surging through you that you've forgotten to acknowledge. And let me know how it goes. Reach out to me on Instagram at mindlovemelissa. If you're looking for a little accountability in changing your reality, that is exactly why I've created the Mind Love membership. Every month, there's a new masterclass that helps you actually create the life that you desire, from your purpose to your self-discipline to your goals to changing your mindset around anything. Plus, you get access to meditations, workbooks, and other bonuses. So find out more at mindlove.com/membership. All my sponsors are at mindlove.com/sponsors. And I would absolutely love it if you'd share this episode. Take a screenshot and tag Mind Love Melissa and Mind Love Podcast. And that's all for today. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.